Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Corporate Cardboard, which is a board game variety show where we talk about what we've been playing, favorite mechanisms, favorite components, all that good stuff. So as always, joining me is Mackenzie. Mackenzie, how are you today?
I'm doing amazing. Trying to struggle through some really hot salsa right now, so if I'm dying, you'll know why. Oh my gosh.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so normally first segment we go straight in to any standout games that we've been playing since the last episode. So Mackenzie, do you want to lead the charge?
Sure, let's go. All right, so this first game actually appeared on corporate cardboard earlier. This is the expansion for Tekenu Obelisk of the Sun, Time of Seth, which is great. When you announced that this was coming out, I was super excited. I felt that Tekenu is always a really tight experience. You had very limited options, but it was how you exploited and developed those options through technology that really made the difference. Now, Time of Seth here adds an entire new action to the game, which in the grand scheme of things is a seventh action, so it's not crazy extra additions, but it's still a big deal when you're changing a core of the game this much. The coolest thing it adds, in my opinion, though, is it's actually going to enhance all of the other features on the board. Now, the first thing that you can do when you go to the Seth area is you can actually pick a new tile for the column section. One of the main sections on the board is a temple area, and a lot of times you would kind of ignore the temple area because it just wasn't as efficient as a lot of the other point scoring venues unless you had a specific card that was going to lead you down that path. With the Time of Seth expansion, you are actually going to be picking one of these new Seth tiles and placing it into that pillar area, and it's going to provide a way better bonus, which is going to incentivize all the other players to actually go to take those pillar actions, which I think is really cool. It's going to enhance one of those weaker parts of the base game. In addition, it adds two new types of currencies to the game in the form of soldiers and priests. Soldiers, which are going to be used for the Seth action itself, and these are going to generate you victory points as well as give you one-time bonuses for actually taking the Seth action. Now, the other thing that you can do is generate priests, and these priests are going to be used when you draft new cards during the turn order. And this is probably one of my favorite implementations of this because now winning the Mott phases and making sure that you are even or as close to even as possible is going to be even more important because you're going to get first pick at one of these super special powers, and these powers require the priest to activate. I love this. I think this is so cool. Seth has really just strengthened all the other portions of the game, incentivized some of the weaker aspects, and really made the dice drafting that much more tense. I love this expansion, and it is actually going to probably rise the Tekenu experience for me overall. It also has some new technology and starting bonus cards that just make the game feel a lot more tense and a lot more tactful. I really enjoy this expansion. Dan, have you had the opportunity to play Time of Seth, or is this one that you're still very excited to try?
So I haven't played this expansion, and to be honest, I didn't know anything about it other than it was out, and I really enjoyed Tekken. I haven't played this one in quite some time actually, and I'm really eager to get it back to the table. But one thing that really has just piqued my interest about your comments are how that balancing system has been made a bigger focus of the game, because that for me was one of the big USPs of the game. That was awesome mechanism, but it felt like they just hamstrung themselves. They didn't do enough with it, and the fact that they've made put a bigger spotlight on that part of the game has really sounds great to me. What are your thoughts on terms of additional rules overhead? Is it going to add too much complexity? Is it a big burden to learn the extra stuff or not?
I feel that it's actually extremely easy and accessible. The
Oh,
biggest
okay.
thing are understanding the new dice that have been introduced, and all they do is provide additional resources that feed into this other two actions. Really, the hardest part of learning the game is just understanding the changes in this setup. That's the biggest difference. But after you get past that, it's just another action space that you can visit, and then it has a process that's really easy to follow. One other thing that it didn't add is whenever you take the Seth action, you actually are going to be sending people out into other parts of Africa to conquer, and doing so is going to have your soldiers attack and kill people, which will give you a blood marker, which is permanent taint on your scales. And so that's really cool because you always have this negative aspect, which means pure dice are just that much more important for you. So cool, so interesting. I think you'll love this one, Dan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds right up my alley. So yeah, you've definitely swayed the scales for me on that one. So yeah, I'm really keen to try that one now. Yeah,
Excellent.
keen. Love the game. Sounds great. Okay, so speaking same designer, Danny Genie, I have played his latest design, Tabanusi. So Tabanusi, another board and dice production. This one a dice drafting game, as you'd probably expect with the Chi now. This one, however, does completely twist the. Well, it's a big change from the other ones, in my opinion. The dice drafted one, I suppose, the thing that's different about it is the fact that you are taking the dice purely for the color, and the color is the resource. So simple as that. But the pip value on that dice shows which area you go to next on this really big board. 3 of these sections are pretty much the same as you're kind of laying out these plans and then building buildings and trying to claim them. You've got the traditional tracks on this one as well. And this one, you are basically trying to climb these tracks to which multiplies the size of your buildings by the position on that track. So it's kind of they go in hand with each other. Additionally, you've got that traditional kind of technology part of the board. In this example, it's the bottom right hand side here where you're putting these kind of ship markers down to give you benefits throughout the game. And that's pretty much how that's how it looks. The thing that's different about this game than the other ones is that they've really tried to make an emphasis on the player interaction. So this is probably one of the most the way I describe it is obtuse. It's a very obtuse way that the interaction works with the players. So you are incentivized to put these plans down, which are these tiles, onto these different spots to get the bonuses on them, which are often really good, like wild resources or climbing tracks, all that stuff you'd expect. However, when you lay those plans, other people are incentivized to build on them because they get to do it cheaper than if you were to build on them yourself. And additionally, if they build on your plans, then you get to go up the corresponding tracks. So it's a really weird push and pull with the interaction, which is very hard, in my opinion, to min max who's getting the net gain out of it. So it's all very behind. I suppose opaque is the way I describe it. You're not quite sure who's gaining out of what decision. And I would say that out of all of them, this one is probably the one that didn't leave me feeling overly satisfied, or I didn't overly enjoy it, which is absolutely sacrilege for me. I mean, if you watch any of my content, you probably know that all these T-series games are amongst my absolute favorites of all time. This one was just maybe reaching a little bit too far to be different, and may hurt itself in the process. I don't know, but I know the other people I played this with felt the same way. Very weird to wrap your head around, despite the rules not being overly complicated. But that's how I felt about it. It's a well-rounded design, but I think it might be a little bit too weird, a little bit too, again, obtuse to really warrant the fun you're going to get back in return. If hopefully that makes sense. Have you looked at the mechanisms in this one, or is this one you want to? I assume you want to get played after the success of the other ones. But what are your kind of initial impressions?
Initially, it was very much, ooh, a new T game, let's try it out. Except I received a lot of negative buzz in all the reviews I was listening to that really teetered around that same line that you just discussed. A little esoteric, a little hard to wrap that head around. And then what you just described here sounds like a less elegant form of the player interaction and support in something like Terra Mystica. So I feel like Terra Mystica is so straightforward in how you are helping each other with reducing costs by building, but also very clear that, hey, you are going to be limiting your options by building so close. This one seems like it's just kind of it's trying to feed into this positive player interaction, but doing so in a less elegant way.
I think that's more than fair to say. Yeah, it's certainly not intuitive. It's quite jarring at times. It just doesn't. It just doesn't follow logic, I think, is the way to describe it. But
these are some wonderful adjectives you're using. It's wonderful.
Yeah. But as you know, I'm a huge fan of these games, and
yeah.
expectations are normally sky high. It's almost like a banker for me every year that I'm going to love these games. But this one is weirdly didn't quite fit that mark, and I don't see it having a place in my collection, unfortunately. So yeah, that was a bit of a miss.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but hey, they can't all be hits, and this is the actual first Tuni game that I haven't really loved. So yeah, that is Tabanusi. Obviously, I've recorded my review this morning, actually, so that should be up in the next
excellent.
few days.
Looking forward to seeing that one.
David says hello. Thank you for joining us, David. Always a pleasure. Okay, Mackenzie, what's next on the agenda?
All right, the next game on the list is one that I've been able to play a lot of recently. And wow, I just have to gush about it for a little bit. This game is Super Fantasy Brawl. Now, Super Fantasy Brawl is a skirmish game put out by Mythic, where you and another player or two teams of two are going to be playing against one another using a set of champions. Now, right off the bat, this gives me this vibe of something like Hearthstone with the amount of artwork, as well as just any Blizzard property, something like League of Legends, where you have these champions that have their own distinct abilities and powers. And I just love that feeling. It's really cool to see these characters really come to life in this combat form. Now, the coolest thing about Super Fantasy Brawl is just how easy it is to table. It's so simple. You take your decks of champions, you draft said champions, you add all 6 of their cards each together to make an 18 card deck. Then you take that deck and you're going to be putting it head to head against the other person. You're going to be not only trying to knock out your opponent's champions to gain trophies for straight up points, but you're also trying to complete objectives, which give you more efficient ways to score points, but can be manipulated around or worked around in tandem with taking each other out through combat. Now, this gameplay itself is really smooth. It uses a core system where you'll have 3 cores of different colors, and then you'll have a hand of 5 cards, and you play cards matching those associated colors. If you don't want to play a card that matches one of those colors, and maybe you don't have one, you can also take basic actions that are equally as important for specific positioning or other special abilities that you can always guarantee on, like healing or direct damage that can ignore shields or planning for the next round. In addition, this game's setup is awesome. There is a huge, it's huge. It's way too big, way bigger than it needs to be, but it uses game trays that make setup a breeze. Every top is the same, so there's no fiddling between component trays, and you literally take a tray out, set it on the table, and it's set up and ready to go. And the last thing I want to talk about is the thematics of the cards and the gameplay itself. Each character has 6 cards that are related to them, and they're all unique. But since your deck is only 18 cards, you're going to be playing 5. You're going to have a hand of 5. You play your cards out of there, discard it, draw 5. You're going to see your whole deck of cards in 4 turns. So you get very familiar, very comfortable with these cards, and each one is unique to the hero. And I love this. For example, we played the other day, and the pirate faction, pirate's one of my favorites. He's Goldar. He's got this giant grappling hook and he's throwing people around, and you can really see that in the artwork, in how the effects work, and the cards are so clean to read. You move, you activate the ability that happens before the attack, you do the attack, and then there may be something that resolves afterwards. So it's really clean, the flow of the cards, how it's laid out, and the thematics are on point. Some of my favorite cards on here, one of them is called Throw. There's a guy that literally, you move, you pick a target that's next to you, one of your allies, and you toss them across the board. So fun. It's just so interesting because that's not only thematic because you have this big hulking dude, but it's also extremely appropriate, strategic, and can lead into completing some of those objectives. And then another one that we did was just like Leaping Strike, where it's this big old troll that runs around. You've got move, before the attack, jump, and then you have this area of attack that does direct damage. And just how this translates into meaningful and legible text and iconography is wonderful. I think Super Fantasy Brawl is a hit for anybody that enjoys a skirmish style game, and it may be a hit if you don't enjoy skirmish style games because it makes it so accessible, so approachable, but every card is meaning and every choice is meaningful with that pairing of objectives and just the straight out combat. Love this one. The new stuff for it will be delivering soon through Kickstarter. Dan, how do you feel on skirmish games in general, and would you be up for giving this one a try?
To be honest, Mackenzie, skirmish type games is something that I don't really even take a look at. I automatically dismiss them because I suppose previous experience they've not been for me. I normally find them a bit too slow for what they're supposed to deliver. So it kind of loses that dynamic feel it's supposed to. But this one looks pretty cool. I mean, when you play in 4 players, is it like 2 teams of 2 or?
Yep, 2 teams of 2, and each player will have their deck of cards is only 12 cards because you only use the cards of 2 champions. Definitely the 1v1 is the preferred way to play this. If you're playing with 4 people, you can just have 2 games going on at once and have like a mini tournament. I think the best strength to this game, though, is, as you described, it's quick. This game's max time limit is 40 minutes, and usually it's about 30 minutes. You just are back and forth constantly. You're taking up to 3 actions a turn. It's a really well-paced design.
Cool. And all those pictures from those pictures, are they in the game? Because they look like Games Workshop quality.
It's awesome. These minis are some of the best I've ever seen. They really bring
Yeah.
that art and the cards to life. They're big, they're chunky. They've got those Blood Rage bases that you slap on to the colors that your team is. So right at the beginning, you're picking these big figures, and you only use 3. And so it's just super satisfying to manipulate and use those tactfully as well. Oh, it's just wonderful. Wonderful. Give it a try. My recommendation, my favorite in this genre.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'd be keen to try it. Why not? Okay, so that is Super Fantasy Brawl. My next game I'm going to talk about is completely opposite to a game like Super Fantasy Brawl. This is pretty much as dry as it's going to get. This is a game called Goa. So Goa is actually been my review's already out this one, but this has been kind of one of my Grail games for a long, long time. I think we've even spoken about it previously, Mackenzie,
Mhm.
on an episode that I've acquired this. Really excited to play it, and I love it when expectations are sky high. You know, complete opposite of Tabanusi, and it actually delivers that, you know, and lives up to that expectation. This is a brilliant game going all the way back to 2004, so quite old now, and by Rudiger Don, who is one of my favorite designers. This one is a kind of a point-to-point movement auction style game. And I suppose you've got your little bit of engine building as well, as you are increasing your abilities to do things throughout the game by investing on your personal player boards. But this one, the kind of unique thing about it is that you have this big grid of tiles in the center of the board here, this 5x5 grid. And at the start of each round, you're going to put one of this first player marker on the border of this of the grid or on an empty spot, and that is going to be the first thing that's going to be auctioned for, the first player marker. And then from then on, the next player is going to put one of their pieces on one of the spots surrounding it, and so on. So the next person will go to the next one surrounding them. You'll build this kind of network of tiles that are going to come up for auction in the future round. And that's when you're going to do a one-off auction. So it's a very strict, very precise style auction where you've got to weigh your bid just right to make sure that you're getting a good price. But you're also being careful that the person who put their token on it doesn't get an absolute bargain, because they always get to purchase that tile for 1 coin less than the highest bid. So always in that kind of power position, which makes that, you know, makes that route building bit even more significant. And after that, you are obviously acquiring the tiles. You're using those tiles to get resources. You're getting like bonus actions. You're getting these colonists and boats to increase your player board. And it's so well ironed out. I mean, I mean, I've come to really love Really Good Dawn games, and this one is one that's just really kind of been lost to the annals of time. Really, this one isn't really in circulation anymore. It's out of print, and it's kind of, for me, that's like criminal. This game is so good. This one should be up there with the great Euros, and you know, hopefully one day it will get a reprint, because it deserves it, because the gameplay is that strong. And I adored it. I think it was great, and it's going to be staying in my collection for a long time to come. So if you like auction games, you like your older style Euros, this is certainly one to try and get a copy of.
Excellent. Wow. That's really high praise. I'm glad that it holds up for you. Go is one that I've heard about in passing. I just heard the name referenced every so often. And then when you talked about it and how excited you were to try it. So I'm glad that it's paid out. So the auction mechanism sounds wonderful. And this sounds like one that I want to try. It's up there with El Grande of the out of print games that I need to get played. So that's awesome.
Yeah, just really well rounded. I can't really fault anything about it. My style of game, and yeah, as you said, it's one of those old classic Euros that really have aged well, in my opinion. So yeah, that's Goa. Really happy to have that one in my collection. Okay, moving on then, Mackenzie. What's your final game you're going to talk about on the first segment?
All right, the final game that I want to talk about is a game that originally I was very much put off of just based on its genre. This is a hidden movement game called Mind Management, or Mind MGMT as it's written out. Now, this game is based off of a popular series of comic books by Dark Horse where you have one player playing as a recruiter. They are trying to get a bunch of people and recruit them into their agency, and you play as rogue agents trying to stop this recruiter from doing so. But this translates into a hidden movement game that has a really cool locale, which is in Zanzibar. So in this area, you enter this big city, this big, large marketplace area, and the player who's playing I forget, the recruiter, they are going to be using this dry erase board and moving along it behind their secret player screen. They have a couple of objectives that they're trying to reach, and every time they do so, they can drop people off and then recruit new people, and then hopefully gain a number of recruiters in order to win the game. So that's the first way that the recruiter wins, is just by getting all of their people recruited, or if they run the clock. So if they just end the game That's another way they can win. Now, the rogue agents have their own objective, and that is find the recruiter. They're going to be moving around. They take 2 turns every time the recruiter takes 1. And so they have a bit more flexibility with the way they work, but they'll be moving around the map and asking for clues as well as trying to capture the recruiter. Now, this game initially offers you 2 ways to play. The basic mode of the game, where you're going to take a very, very simplified version of it, where you just have that core mechanic of the person who's recruiting moves 1 space, and then the agents are going to be moving and trying to use clues and deduction to figure them out. Now, after you've played this a couple of times, you start the real game, which, oh my gosh, this is a complexity jump that is drastic. But not only is it drastic, it is so good. Like the jump here adds so much to the game. Now, right off the bat, the objective system, the fact that the recruiter person actually has something they're working towards in the form of recruiting agents, I love that in that core simplified game. You have both players actively doing something. It's not just one person trying to run away from the other, which is something that turns me off about these style of games. A lot of times it's kind of boring for that person, and it's kind of boring for the other players because the objectives are they're not necessarily the most exciting. But this recruitment system, and when you jump to the advanced version, is modified. So in this player screen here, you have 3 different cards that you're trying to find as the recruiter player. When you play the full mode of the game, every other card that could potentially be in that deck is revealed 2 at a time as your immortal targets. So you, as the recruiter player, now have 4 cronies in the form of immortals that are also pieces on the board that you'll get to move during your turn. So now you're doing twice as many actions on your turn. Every time you use one of these black immortal characters, you're trying to get them to find these other symbols that are face up. Now, every time that you get 2 immortals on those symbols, you cash those in for a new recruit. So that's one of the pieces that you need to win the game. However, every time you do that, you'll refill that hand of cards at the end of the round, which means that you're eliminating the options for what could be behind your player shield. So the further you proceed towards your objective, the more you're helping the other players deduce what you have in your hand and what your personal objectives are. This is such a great twist because there's so much more to think about and so much more risk while progressing yourself further. I love this style. I love this system. And then in addition to bolstering the recruiting side, all of the players, the rogue agents, will also receive an extra ability in the form of their character powers. And I just think this is really, really well done. Apparently, it's thematic. I have not read the comic, but it's one that I want to jump into. But this is a hidden movement game that I'm really impressed with, and I really want to play more of. It also features this shift system that adds legacy components to the losing side each round, which I think is a really great idea. It's going to get you excited to jump back in. You've got this advent calendar of game trays boxes that you're going to be plugging and playing. Speaking of advent, and then, I just think it's a really well done, and I would recommend it even if you're a little skeptical of the hidden movement genre. So what do you think about this one, Dan?
Yeah, I'm actually quite intrigued about this one. I do actually quite like hidden movement, but this one seems like it, yeah, almost takes it to the next level. I'm not like you. I'm not familiar with the actual IP at all. I've not read the comics, whatever. But all that stuff sounds right up my alley, really. I mean, is the best way to play this one on one or not?
So I've played this game 3 times with the 2v1. So we had 2 players play the rogue agent, one play the other, and then twice 1v1. And I actually think I prefer the 1v1. The big reason for this is during the collaboration between the 2 players with trying to manage all their stuff, you're going to get significantly more downtime. And so I think that's important to know. But I do think it's not terrible. It just depends on who you're playing with. Some people are going to be more susceptible to that. But you also don't want to telegraph your moves too much because the person who's listening back there is going to know what you're planning. So that also is kind of a balancing factor there, but something to be aware of. But I do really like this at the 3 and 2 player count. Both have their strengths. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. Generally, those kind of hidden movement games, I love them as a head-to-head kind of competition. I've only got, I think I've got one in my collection, the old Whitechapel one, and me and my brother like playing that 1v1. But yeah, this one I'm really intrigued by it, and I would love to give this one a try actually. So yeah, really good pick, and I'm interested to see you like it as well, considering you're not, again, like me, you're not knowledgeable or a fan of the IP itself. So goes to show
It was
that the game
really
is fun.
funny. when this one was introduced to me, like I pretty much told the person, I was like, I don't like hidden movement games, and I was explaining to them why I didn't like it, and it was really funny. Is my friend Jeff, and he's like, wait, I don't like hidden movement games, and I'm like, oh, what was your experience? And we actually had the same exact experience. I think it was playing Whitechapel, but it was really funny because it was with the same person that turned us off from the game. So these were two separate incidents that happened to each of us with the same person and turned us off of like this whole genre. So funny. I thought that was hilarious. But this is something that I'm really excited to jump into more. I'm hoping I get to play it again today.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Like genuinely really interested in that one. Okay, so the final game I want to talk about is actually one I saved, especially for you, because I think that you might really like this game, and I'm quite interested to pitch it to
Ooh,
you. So this is a game called Stella. I don't know
okay.
if you know anything about this game or not, because I didn't. I don't know anything about it, and I think it was a viewer or a, someone recommended it to me. They know my taste. I love finding a quirky card game that's really strong. That's one of my passions. Of finding like really nice games that are just brilliant. This one is that not sci-fi or anything. This one kind of a astronomy feel to it. Mechanisms wise, this game is quite different. So this is I've got to find the best picture here. So this is a kind of a little tableau building game, but with some quite harsh restrictions, as you are trying to put these different cards in this basically this telescope, which is this almost like a triangle or a pyramid of cards you can see here. And all these different planets and celestial bodies have different icons on them. So they'll have like a planet icon or a black hole icon, and that means that when you place any more of those in the telescope, they have to be touching each other in one way or another. So you can see in the middle card of this telescope here, this could if I had a matching symbol, it can go anywhere all around it as long as they're touching one way or another. And you want to be putting those things in your telescope because each round you're going to be essentially drafting two cards, one of which is going to go in your telescope, the other one is going to go in your other kind of tableau, which is your notebook, which is basically just a bunch of cards. And the idea is you're trying to get these stars, because some of these cards have stars on them, into your telescope. And the number of stars on each of these different suits, these different planets, black holes, etc., are going to multiply by your longest run of cards in your notebook. And the weird thing in this game, which I've never ever seen before, is the way you actually draft the cards in the first place. So you're going to have this communal drafting row. You can see here at the top of the board here, 1 to 5. You're going to pick your first card and add it to your hand to create a hand of 3 cards. And then with those cards in your hand, you are going to pick one of them to play, as I said, in either your notebook or your telescope. And then depending on the number on that card, you have to take the matching card from the tableau. So say I played a 2 into my notebook because I needed to create that run of cards. I would have to take the 2 from the common pool and play it into my telescope. So it's a very weird, very restrictive way of drafting cards in the first place, which I think is absolutely fascinating, and it works. Again, it's a weird and maybe unintuitive way of playing the game, but it actually works for this one, and it feels different. It's again a good type of restrictiveness. And on top of all of that, you want to be putting on the high cards in your telescope, because each of these different segments of the telescope, like this top 4 cards, this middle 3 cards, or the bottom 4 cards, are going to have basically an area majority game, where if you've got the highest number of values there, then you're going to get 10 points for each of those segments. But at the same time, the higher numbers have the lower amount of stars on them. It's got quite a lot going on, but nothing that works against it at all. And I think maybe the explanation sounds worse than the gameplay in its actuality. But this game was probably, I think it's an early candidate for a surprise of the year. I wasn't sure what to expect from it, and I was absolutely more than delighted with the way this game played. Kind of one of those games where I played it the first time and just thinking, the cog starts spinning in your head, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. Maybe next time I'll do this. And I think it's brilliant. So I really recommend checking out Stella. I know you like clever card games, and I think this one could fit that collection of games that you have of that type. So really recommend you at least give this one a go. Affordable, small, 30-minute game, and I think it's rock solid.
Holy cow, this looks awesome. So the way you described it, it actually seemed pretty straightforward and smooth. I love how the different scorings are present and the tension between the two different groupings of scoring. So I like that. That
Yeah.
drafting system seems very solid. I have heard of this one before. I think it was through Tantrum House. It was featured on there as a really solid two-player game. The theming is wonderful. I like this astronomy theming and discovering these different things. It just looks great. So thanks for the recommendation. I'll give this one a try.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. So the only thing is, it is strictly two-player,
Yeah.
and to be honest, I'm not quite sure why that is. I can't see why this one couldn't be just have more cards in there and then make it more scalable. Maybe
Hmm.
there's something I'm missing, but maybe it would be a too big of a production. I'm not sure. Be too much of a table hog, but I don't know. I think I don't really see why this can't be scaled higher. But again, if you ever played the games two-player, this one is definitely a strong candidate.
Excellent.
Okay, so that is all the new to me games we've talked about. So we're going to move on to the next segment, which is the news. So I haven't got any news to mention. I was going to talk about the Arm and Ray being reprinted, a classic Reiner Knizia auction game that's been out of print for a while. But I think maybe a bit of time's gone past, and maybe people know about that. So I've decided not to talk about it. But I know there's something you want to talk about, Mackenzie.
Yes, so
Go ahead.
this is kind of falls into that similar category as you, where it's been out for a while, the news, but it's something that I just wanted to ask you about and just kind of have a discussion around. And this is Elf Creek Games reprint of a Christmas themed game called Santa's Workshop. So I don't know if you've ever heard of this game or if this is something you're familiar with, but Santa's Workshop here is clearly a Christmas themed game that has already been announced in January for next year. So I'm just curious in general. I'm not necessarily super interested in the game, but I wanted to know your thoughts and opinions on games that are themed around holidays specifically. What do you think about this? Is this something that you would ever buy? I know that you have limited shelf space, so is that a factor in this? It's something you're excited to even give a try or even worry about? Just tell me your thoughts here.
Yeah, I've never really found that hook of the appeal of games to fit a certain occasion, because I play what I like at the time, and if I don't feel like playing this certain game at Christmas, then maybe I'm not going to play this game anyway. So I don't know. I don't think when you're as into hobby as I am, I suppose. Whereas maybe if some already plays Christmas game or games at all, when it comes to Christmas, this is what they always play every Christmas. Maybe it could be that kind of thing. But yeah, personally, it's not really been a factor or something I've really considered. I've never really seen the appeal of it. But nothing against anybody who has. So that's fine. I mean, it's cool that you have those things that are maybe gonna maybe not play them as frequently, but maybe have more longevity because it might become more of a tradition or something. But yeah, nothing I've really considered, Mackenzie, and I don't think this is going to sway me either way, to be honest. How about yourself?
So I have definitely played games that fall into that theming. Like for example, we have 12 Days of Christmas. It's a hand management drafting game, trick taking, all based around the 12 Days of Christmas song. And so that one's cute. It's a 6 for me. It's not the greatest game in the world, but it's also not mediocre. It is a fun game, and I'll pull it out every once in a while. And the theming is actually pretty on point because you play over 12 days. There's 12 of each of the cards, so not of each, but there's the appropriate amount of each of the cards from the song, and so it works really well. So I like how the theme can translate into it, and it can be fun and festive and get certain games played. But once again, it's that, am I gonna prioritize playing a game that may be mediocre in this limited time space anyway? There are
Yeah,
some themes that fit appropriately for holidays that I think are appropriate and approachable. For example, I really like Keyflower, playing that during the fall, just because it's got this nice farming theme, lots of leaves, and it's just like a really pretty vibe. And so that one, I'm just like, hey, it's fall, let's play some more Keyflower. But even though Keyflower is not a fall game, like no one cares. Or playing like horror games around Halloween times. Like I feel like Halloween has a lot more ability to have games played around it just because of the existence of lots of spooky theming in games. But I feel like Christmas is one that you're like, all right, we got to make a Christmas game, and that's gonna set you down a road that you may have be restricted. And so I don't know. It's not something that I'm like that I think about first and foremost. But I was just curious to hear your thoughts and opinions on this more than I was excited to talk about this news segment.
Yeah, I think I echo you really. I would feel like if the game's mediocre, then I feel like I'm wasting time and I should be playing something else, despite the occasion, despite anything, you know. So yeah, I think I'm with you there.
One of
Interesting.
our holiday games recently is Nemesis, and we've nicknamed it Nemesismas because every
Yeah,
every
I can see
Christmas
that.
time, that's it. We'll make our own Christmas games.
Yeah, just put little Christmas hats on things. Okay, moving on then to crowdfunding. So this month I was on the fence with one. I don't know if you know much about it, Mackenzie. There's a game out called Brawl, which is about like making these like medieval heraldry.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that at all. I've not got up the images here, but it's a game about it's like a puzzly style thing where you're making these like medieval like heraldry and all that kind of stuff. But I think it might seem a bit too light, so I've not really
Hmm.
pulled the plug on that one or pulled the
Gotcha.
trigger on that one. So yeah, I might wait until retail comes out because I don't think there's much incentive either to back rather than just wait for retail. But yeah, I was on the fence with that one. But I know there's one you want to talk about, so go ahead.
Yep. So this month has been really heavy for Kickstarter games. Like now that January is hit and the holidays have come and gone, there are so many big games on Kickstarter right now. So this is obvious. We got to probably mention it here. There's the Marvel Zombies Kickstarter that is blowing up. It's on its way to outpace Gloomhaven's sequel, Frosthaven, which is pretty incredible, especially with the new expansions that are going to be trickled out. So it's going to keep it strong throughout the campaign. But the one that I want to talk about is the one that I have that is proven, that I've played the base game before, and it's going to be introducing new mechanisms and concepts that I'm extremely excited for. This is the solo-only board game Final Girl. So this game here re-implements the hostage negotiator system by introducing a board, modular settings in the forms of the locations you'll be moving around, as well as the killers that you'll be fighting. And lastly, they've changed a lot of the action cards and the roll to resolve mechanisms into ones where you can fail forward a bit more. And that's honestly the biggest key for me here with Final Girl is just how much mitigation you have and how you're able to pick your failing options. And I really like that about the system. And it's going to be one that keeps me coming back because of that approachability in the gameplay and that bit more feeling of control as you play. Now, that being said, this new expansion offers all the core content. So if you missed out on it, you can jump in and get everything here, all the exclusives and whatnot. But you have lots of new characters. You've got the Alien franchise, and probably the one I'm most excited for is actually The Thing. So this one here, the organism at Station 2891. Oh, this looks so good. It takes the classic boards, which are okay, you have a location and then you have a killer board. But the killer board has changed into a set of victims because normally you have this big character board that has the abilities of the monster and whatnot and how it attacks. But in the new Thing expansion, you just have 3 characters and they're people that are in the game with you. And so they're just other characters that are in the station with you. And you're going to have to test them and try to figure out which one of these is actually the organism. And I love this. I think that's so cool. I think that is a great implementation of The Thing. I just recently watched The Thing actually with my friend Levi. He's a big movie buff and he said, we got to make sure we watch this. And I think this is such a perfect implementation of it. It makes me excited because this is one that you get to play in this solo experience. And so you can always ensure that you are getting this thematic fix that you really need. And this everything is just so exciting in this Kickstarter. You've got the Big Bad Wolf and Red Riding Hood. You've got the Thing itself and just a wonderful mechanism that it employs. And the cherry on top is all of these modular expansions can be mixed matched with each other. I love this. I'm so excited to try this. I love that they're introducing new organization systems. They're upgrading some of the mediocre components of the original version, and then just more of a system that is already proven and fantastic. So I love Final Girl, and I can't wait for Series 2. I'm so happy it's doing so well.
Is this one? Am I right in thinking this one's purely a solo game?
It is purely solo. It is a purely solo experience, but this is one that I'm very, very impressed with.
Okay, yeah, I've heard a lot of buzz about this one recently. It seems to be quite hot at the moment. A lot of kind of forums and stuff always talking about Final Girl, all this stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's clearly doing well. But do you think all that additional stuff is going to take away from its kind of purpose, what it's supposed to be, like a small little game, or is it too bloated, too
So,
expansive? Do you think?
this game, I would say this game is not small right
Oh,
now.
okay.
Holy
Okay, I must
cow.
have the wrong impression.
It's huge. It's so funny because you have to get a core box. This core box is like a book size, so something like that. And every time you play a mission, it's another box. The storage for this game is a nightmare. So this is one that has a short playtime, but it is not a small game, if that makes sense. But it's a really
Right.
cool experience because you are consistently playing, and you are it packs a lot of game in a short amount of time. And it's one of those games that when you wrap up, you can just jump in and play again. It's one that you're going to consistently play, but you do have to have dedicated space for it. But for solo players, I think that that's probably a thing that they're more apt to, is dedicating time and space for gaming. So that's what I found, at least. So I really enjoy it, and I think it's this great gigantic package with very satisfying but quick gameplay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I must have had the wrong impression of it. Yeah, fair enough. And yeah, so I know it's very popular at the moment. David has said that he's looking forward to the Lagrange Deluxe Master Set. Yeah, I'm absolutely with you there, David. Very keen for that one. And I know some other designers are putting their spin on it as well. These additional modules, like there's a Steffenfeld module, etc., which sounds great. So yeah, been after Lagrange for quite a long time, but out of print. So yeah, looking forward to that one. And he said the same for me. Never had the original, but it looks up his alley. Yeah, completely with you there, David. Another dice-driven Euro, I think, from the what I've seen of it. Okay, so that is crowdfunding. So we are going to go on to component appreciation. So this is where we talk about a particular card or physical piece of a board game and talk about why we like it or why it stands out. So go ahead, Mackenzie. What have we got today?
All right. So my wife and I were playing some Cthulhu Death May Die the other day, and I was reminded of a brilliant character that exists in the Death May Die universe, and this is Olivia. Now, Olivia here, she is one of the investigators that you can play as. She is a riff on what's her name? Amelia Earhart. So she's a riff on Amelia Earhart. She is a pilot, and her whole thing is she's unlucky. And I love this because they've taken a game that has a lot of reliance on dice rolls and roll to resolve checks, and they've introduced a character that says, hey, it's okay to be unlucky. And every time that you are going to be rolling dice as Olivia, if you ever roll 0 successes, instead of getting 0 successes, you set all of them to successes. So they're automatic passes. And I love this. This means that you're pretty much always guaranteed to at least get some success in what you're doing. But you can also do some really goofy stuff where you maybe pay with some of your rerolls to try to purposely fail completely a test. And that is so interesting. So much fun. I love that it's so good because it takes something that you're like, oh man, I suck at these dice rolls. And then you suddenly, oh, that's a good thing. It's great. I love this. And as the game progresses, you're going to have the ability to increase the different abilities on your characters. The more insane you go, the stronger you get in this game. One of my favorite mechanisms here. But her effect, her top track, is unique to her. Every character has a unique top track, and that's the unlucky ability. The more unlucky you become with Olivia, her ability says that every round, whenever you roll dice, you can change some of your dice faces to failures. And so you're guaranteeing and propelling this failure forward. And it is so great. I love this system. And I thought it was hilarious. So I think that this is wonderful. She is hilarious in the way her abilities work. But the fact of the matter is, she's actually incredibly powerful because she can consistently get successes on these large, important tests. And I love that about this. It's so wonderful. I think it's such a well done character.
Yeah, I tend to like it when things play off, stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, mine is something that's quite obscure, actually. Something that probably nobody knows about, and I'm going to try and evangelize this a bit because I really enjoy this game. So this is the Grande from, not El Grande, but this is the Grande from El Caballero, which is actually a game that, a bit like Goa, this one is, well, in fact, way more than Goa. This one has gone completely into obscurity over the years. This is basically the tile version, or well, it's a tile placement game by by Wolfgang Kramer, which kind of has the same setting and the same theme as El Grande, which is my favorite game of all time. But this one, there's a particular piece in it that I absolutely love, which is Grande. So this is a tile placement area control style game where you are essentially trying to control these different regions. You do that in a really different way to a lot of other tile placement games, and you do it through the placement of these tiles, which kind of rotate around, and you can choose to invest in them or um, and the more you put into them, the more you kind of are bidding to control that region. But there's one piece in it which can really pay off well, and sorry, I'm just loading up the pictures here. That normally when you put one of these tokens down, you can only ever control one region with it, and that means that if somebody places like a tile around another side of it, then that your control piece automatically gets kicked off the board. And the pictures here, when I show you in a second, will really show what I say. There's a Grande piece that you can put onto one of these control tokens, which means that whenever you add other tiles to it, it stays in place and you can control several regions at once with just one tile. And the significance this has on the game is absolutely massive, and knowing when to use it at the right time is huge. And yeah, it's a really cool mechanism, one that I haven't ever seen before. But that particular component of the Grande, and I'll see if I can find a picture here. Let's just try. Yeah, when you pull this move off, and you can have loads of kind of influence on all these different regions with a single tile placement, it just feels so satisfying, and it feels like you're getting loads of kind of bang from your buck. Here's a picture here. So yeah, normally you could only ever place one of these tiles touching one region like this, but you can see this person here is touching two of these kind of earth regions, or these two landscape tiles, where normally that would kick you off the board, but this means that he's got now 7 influence in this particular little tile and 6 influence in all of this area here. And it's just so cool when it gets pulled off, particularly if you surround that tile and get loads of it out, loads of returns out of that, and loads of influence and get all those big points. But yeah, it's a really cool mechanism. I'm surprised this one hasn't been used before, because it is so simple but brilliant, really. And yeah, I'm looking forward to show that one off and see hopefully rile up a bit more excitement, because it's a brilliant game that nobody talks about and probably lives in the shadow of El Grande. But yeah, have you even heard about this game, Mackenzie? Because to be honest, I hadn't heard about it until semi recently.
I have never heard about this game, but I do really appreciate when games have like one piece that you're like, oh, I know this piece existed. And then when you actually play it, you feel really powerful because of just its influence and its kind of aura and how good it is, and just to be aware. I really like mechanisms in games like that.
Yeah. But do you think it's quite strange that nobody else has used this kind of this control system where you've got these tiles
definitely
here with all the edges? Yeah, I've never seen that before. Have you seen that before?
I don't think so.
No. Interesting. That game is from the late 90s. So again, I think this game, if it was released now, it would still be it could be a hit. So yeah, it's a shame, really. But there we go. That is the Grande from El Caballero. Just going up to some comments then. Not really sure. Okay, so this is from Original Maverick. I'm talking about crowdfunding. Saying he's not sure when it's coming up, but Autobahn is the next Kickstarter he's looking forward to. Yeah, really excited for that one. I think that is it Lopiano who's done that one? I can't think, but
I'm not sure on this one.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my most anticipated ones about making the
Wow.
the German motorway system. That one, I didn't realize it's going to be on Kickstarter actually. And also Kay Hewitt asked what's my opinion, or our opinion, on Nemo's War. I've not played it. I've never played it. Have you dived into that one?
I have. So I feel like Nemo's War has a really good emergent narrative as you play. There's roll to resolve for a lot of the action. So if that's not something you're comfortable with, don't even give it a try. And then you also do roll at the start of each round for your action points. So there is a lot of dictation and unmitigatable dice rolling, but there are also lots of options that you receive at the start of the game to mitigate very important dice rolls, but it's very far and few between. So it's a game that is very thematic first, but it is very satisfying satisfying to play as you're turning all these different gears. And so I think it makes for a very, very compelling solo experience that has a great emergent narrative. So if that's something you're looking for, give it a try. I do recommend that you take a look at the gameplay, maybe on something like YouTube here for someone who has a playthrough on their channel. I'd recommend Tia from Takaijo, actually. She's got a great video where she jumps into it there. So that'd be my recommendation. Go check it out.
Yeah, I've heard. I've
Did
heard
you
a
see
lot
this
of.
comment? Okay, Hewitt, you're
Oh no, I
killing me.
didn't. No, a lot of. I've heard a lot of solo players really talk about that. Okay. Traveling the Lord reminds me of my manager at work. Oh, brilliant. Okay, I hope you adore him. Brilliant. Okay, so moving on to this or that. So this is a segment where we compare two different things in the board game space and put the vote up to you guys to see which one's going to be the victor. So last episode, I think we had a bit of a strange one, Mackenzie, with whether we're going to allow, or whether we allow or think it's appropriate to have food at the board game table. And I know that survey or that questionnaire or vote was put on your channel. So
That's right. Here at Corporate Cardboard, we ask the serious, real questions. So last time we talked about food on the table or not on the table, and there was an overwhelming 80% that said no food at the gaming table. Now, me personally, I am more leaning towards the food at the gaming table side. My whole priority is to make sure that people are comfortable and there for the gaming, but also able to be relaxed and in a very very loose environment. It doesn't have to be something super strict. And this comment here from Takaijo, actually, she said, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If y'all are worried about friends getting food on your games, keep the food and get better friends. And my response here was, they booed her because she spoke the truth. And I think Tia is right on the money here. I think that if people are eating, that's fine, but people just should generally respect your things. So if food is an issue, then who are these people? That's what I'm wondering about.
yeah. So it's, to be honest, it's never really been a big factor for me because I think we normally have evening games anyway where everybody's already eaten. It's not really a big thing. So, but yeah, I'm not too precious about it. But I think if I had the choice, I'd say no, but not overly fussed. Okay, but the next question we're going to put up on Corporate Cardboard is another slightly trivial one, but interesting to see how people take this one. So this is regarding storage of board games. So whether you prefer to store your games vertically, as in like a library style, or horizontally, so lying flat. You can probably see from behind my shoulder here. Let's get the camera up. I
You
store
got
my games
both.
vertically,
Look at
and
that.
yeah, I can't quite fit those games vertically on there, but I would if I could. I really like storing it vertically. I think it looks really cool. I think it looks really smart and polished. But I see the advantages of going horizontal because everything doesn't get messed up as much. It doesn't warp the boxes so much or that kind of thing. But I'm not too precious. I mean, some of the games I have horizontal, most of them I have vertical, and I would choose to vote vertical, as you can see. How about yourself, Mackenzie?
So I am lucky enough to have a shelving system where I can store everything horizontally. We've recently started doing our library look through, and this is just going through our shelves one by one, kind of doing mini reviews. And on here, we're displaying a box throne. And the way that the box throne system works is it's a modular shelving system where everything is horizontal. So you have all of these games that have their own private shelves. And I really like this system because I really enjoy storing games horizontally, and this lets me do that in a way that is non-intrusive and keeps everything nice. I like being able to take a game out and knowing nothing has shuffled around because you've had it on its side. I like having the games not open up while I'm trying to take out another. That's sometimes what I'll feel when I do store things vertically. If I have like a line of games and I pull one out, the lid of one might come off, and then your whole storage and organization system of the other one is ruined. So you're just like, gosh. But I definitely understand the appeal of it. I do think it looks pretty dang good. And it's kind of satisfying to like nook something off. Nothing is ever stacked if you're doing something horizontally. But once again, the box throne system allows me to, completely run away from that problem. Nothing stacked on top of each other. It's got its own shelf. So I really enjoy the horizontal system. But honestly, I think that the biggest factor here is going to be how you have your games just stored in general. So whatever your shelving unit looks like, that's really going to dictate how your games are stored.
Yeah. What do you think the outcome of the vote is going to be?
Oh, I think overwhelmingly vertically. I think
Really?
that that
Okay.
is, I think that's probably the way to do it. I know that most people that I see have at least some games that are vertical. Yeah, I think I have some games vertical. Yeah, looking at this bookshelf here, a lot of my party games and campaign style games are lined up here, like all the detective and crime solving ones. And they fit nicely. And once again, those don't have as many crazy components, so they work well for that vertical space. So I think it's a good mix of both. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think vertical will win the vote, but I don't think by such a big swing.
Okay.
I tell you what, an interesting question for a future will be actually whether about like inserts and or baggies, that kind of thing. We'll maybe put that one on the list. Yeah, I'll put the vote up in the next coming days, and then yeah, we'll wait and we'll see what the outcome is on the next episode of Corporate Cardboard. So yeah, question of the this or that is vertical or horizontal storage. So just go a couple of questions or a couple of comments here. Original Maverick has said that he likes storing vertical, but he never does it. Why not? Why not, Maverick? And David has said he stores everything vertically just because of the ease of taking out and putting back games. Yes, it's nice to slot them in rather than having that big, avalanche of games falling on top of each other and games getting crushed beneath. Also, another comment here from Kay Hewitt. Saying that his fiance and him recently got Anno 1800 and it's really addictive. Yeah, really good game. Still have it on my shelf. And he finds it very addictive. Maybe do a top 10 addictive games list. I've actually done that list
Ah,
already, Kay Hewitt. So be sure to check that one out. However, most of the games on that list of mine are smaller games, I think. So they're not the kind of bigger, heavier Anno 1800 style games. They're more that kind of I think like games like Ganchon Clever, that kind of thing. You want to keep doing better and better and better. That was the kind of slant on the list I did. But be sure to check it out. It's somewhere on my top 10 playlist. So take a look at it. Okay, so moving on then to mechanism appreciation. So we did component appreciation. So this is mechanism appreciation, where we talk about a particular part of a board game, so something mechanically that you're doing that you think is interesting or fun or just particularly clever. So what is your choice for mechanism appreciation this week?
so for me, I wanted to take a look at a recently delivered Kickstarter game called Merchants of the Dark Road. It's a very lavish production by Elf Creek Games that puts you in the role of merchants. You'll do your best to collect items on your caravan and then take heroes that you've sold these items to, as well as complete contracts by traveling to different areas. And that's the mechanism that I want to talk about here, is the actual traveling itself. During your turn, if you land on one of these traveling spaces, you can decide to go to one of these provinces. So the provinces are separated into three colors, and you pick one of these colors that you are going to jump to. Now, everybody at the table, after you decide where you're going, how you're going, and what companion you're taking, will have the option to join you. Now, there's a bunch of different reasons that you may join someone's caravan. First off, if you join, you go with them to that location. So you can deliver all of your things as well as you do this. So maybe you have a couple of blues because you saw that that other person was collecting blues. So you pick up some things that you know they're going to eventually travel. So you want to jump on their caravan and score some additional points because of their actions. So I really like this approach to player interaction there, where you're constantly engaged and wondering, ooh, what is that person going to do? And what should I do to prepare to join their voyage? And that's one thing that you could do, is just try to deliver with them. The other cool thing about this is every time you travel, you're going to have some form of road event. And these events are going to be based on the number of lanterns you spend on your journey. If you spend 3 lanterns, you're going to do a better event. But whenever you do this event, everyone that joins the journey with you will get to take one of these travel dice and do an action first. Based on the number of people that join your expedition, you take a number of dice, roll them up, and then allocate them to these different zones. Each zone is going to have some reward or a penalty that you must pay. So the more people that join, the more dice you have. However, the more people that join on these better missions, the more chances other people will have to take the better dice. You can use lanterns to re-roll, but it can be risky to go on these more impressive missions because everyone else is getting that choice first. And I think that's a really cool twist, because even if you don't have anything to deliver on one of these missions, you can still join a road just to mess with the other person or try to get some sort of passive income or points or opportunity for scoring. And I think that's done really well. So This is a mechanism that I find really interesting because you're able to participate on anybody's turn, and it also allows for interaction in the form of taking things just because you know that someone else might be traveling to a place where you can deliver said things. I think it's a really cool system here, and my favorite part in Merchants of the Dark Road.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I've not really looked too far into this game, but it certainly looks like it looks really attractive from the and its visuals. Is this kind of a more of a Euro style game?
Oh, it is definitely a Euro style game. There is some dice rolling in the form of that travel dice, but it is dice drafting. So based on the player count and how many people have joined, they'll be picking it, and you have lots of opportunities for mitigation and re-rolls. So it does have definitely some luck to it, but it's mainly focused on engine building as well as contract fulfillment. So it's a really well done game. I think it's really fun.
Yeah, it looks really good, and yeah, I love the visuals and the pieces. Okay, yeah, cool choice. Yeah, I'm interested in that. My one is something a little bit different. Another one of those mechanisms that I'd love to see be used again. This is from Stefan Feld's Carpe Diem. Very simple tile placement game, but the thing I love most about this game, and I think it's amazing, is the actual way you score points or you claim these scoring cards. I think this is such a cool system, as you have there's basically this grid of cards, each with its own scoring objective on them. And then at the end, or when it comes to a scoring phase, you are placing one of your claim markers on areas and where these cards meet. And that means that those two cards in which this marker is touching is going to be the only combination of those two cards that's going to be claimed by any player. So that, for me, is one of the coolest that I think I've ever seen, and I'd love to see this used again in a maybe more involved game, because I think the rest of Carpe Diem was just okay, whereas this part was outstanding, I thought. Yeah, so I love that. This particular combo of cards works for me. I need to be first in player order to claim that particular combo. And yeah, that variability of it as well just sounds it's great. So let's see if I can find a picture to show how it works, because it really is a great mechanism that I'm really surprised it's not been seen again since. And yeah, adds so much more kind of variability, so much more modularity to the game, makes every game feel different. So yeah, you can see here this kind of 3x4 grid, and that blue player there has put their disc in the center of those two cards. Therefore,
Make sure to
those
share
two
your
cards
screen, Dan.
he's put in.
Make sure to share your screen.
Oh, sorry. There we go. There we go. Sorry, I thought it was shared then.
No worries.
So there you go. They've got the grid of card there, and those two cards in particular are going to score for the blue player, but nobody else can score that exact combination for the rest of the game. And it adds this real tension to the game, because you might be working towards something and you want to milk it as much as you can, but somebody might be jumping on there because they might want an adjacent card to it. Works so well. No way to misconstrue that rule, or no way to misunderstand it. And I think it's brilliant. And yeah, love to see Feld explore it further. So that is the scoring system in Carpe Diem. Have you seen that mechanism before? I don't know if you've played Carpe Diem or not.
I have not. I have not seen this before. And Carpe Diem is one that I just never picked up. I've heard good things about it. I've heard there were some issues with printing. So I think maybe that's what really stayed my hand. And I think this came out right when I was getting into the hobby. So I think those are probably the two biggest deterrents. So
yeah, it did have some issues. I mean, the production is questionable at best, but the gameplay is really strong. And that particular part I thought was great, not just good. So yeah, that is the scoring system of Carpe Diem. Good game. Not one of my favorite Felds, but that part was great. Okay, so moving on, I think it is time for the random game. The random game generator. So this is where we go on Board Game Geek and we hit the random game button and we see what we end up with. So let's get started straight away. So I'm going to click this button here. So we click the browse button, then we.
It's an expansion to a well-known game.
Okay. I'm going to go for.
That's my guess.
Let's go for something pre-1970. There we go. Let's see what we have.
Come on, give me the good one.
Oh, okay. I've got the name of the game here. Like say, Yotta no Waterfowl. No idea what this is.
You're so close. 1982.
1982. Okay. So we've got 3 ratings, average of a 5.3. No comments.
Yotta no Waterfowl.
You ought to know waterfowl. Yeah. Okay, so
You
let's
ought to
see what
know.
this game is all about. So obviously it's about waterfowl some way or another. But okay, so part of a series of Yotano games on six different games on different topics. Yotano Waterfowl is a game played on a 6x6 grid board on which players place cards depicting birds to be identified. The first player to identify 7 waterfowl wins the round. Rolling dice adds a random element to the gameplay, while a handicap system allows players of varying knowledge levels to play the game against each other. So so this is a very niche knowledge game where you need to know about different types of waterfowl. So wow, talk about niche. But
Holy cow.
this actually sounds quite funny. So I'll be interested what the topics are if they could be as niche as waterfowl.
So I'm looking at the other, the other games in the Yada series. There's also a Yada
Yeah.
No Birds. So it looks like
Yep.
this game there's only those two. There's Yada No Birds and Yada No Waterfowl. And
Okay. Yeah,
there's
I can.
also Yada No Mammals. It's all just different animals. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you just got to identify the different animals. I suppose it's a good way of learning. Really, it's a bit of a teaching tool, and you can make a game out of it. But yeah, if you're into a particular subject and you want to know more and more about it, then maybe it's a quite an interesting little game. Yeah, I think some sounds actually okay. Very obviously very basic, but it sounds pretty cool if you're into that particular subject.
It's the zoo books of knowledge trivia games. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be interested to know what that handicap system is, because it says there's a way to counteract, varying degrees of knowledge. So I don't know what that entails, but
Yeah.
I generally like it when
I'm
games do
like, I'm just looking at the rule book right now.
that.
It's only one page. That's accessibility, man. One page of
Yeah.
rules. That's good stuff.
Well, there we go. I've never heard of this, but obviously, it's from the early '80s anyway, so it's from before I was born. So there we go. I quite like that one. I think that's one of my favourite ones so far. That is You Ought to Know
Yeah.
Waterfowl. Proper random game there. That's what this segment's all about. Okay, so moving on then to why is this in your collection? So this is a segment where we pick something from each other's collection and we question why we still own it. Maybe we don't like it ourselves. Maybe we want to know more about it. Could be any reason like that. Mackenzie, hit me with it. What have you got?
Okay, so my game for you, I believe, is a recent acquisition for you, but I want to know why you still have it and why you haven't hawked it yet. And that's the game Whirling Witchcraft. Tell me about this. Tell me your opinions on it. Why do you still have it and haven't gotten rid of it yet?
Okay, so yeah, this is literally brand new. We've only had it for weeks, basically.
I got you.
Yeah, I really didn't like this game at all, to be honest. And I was quite actually optimistic about it because it's quite a weird game. I don't know if you know much about it, but this is like a game where you're trying to convert cubes into other cubes as much as you can, and then put them in these cauldrons to pass on to your opponent, and then they have to keep kind of fighting them off and converting them to their next opponent without trying to make their own cauldron overflow or their own player board overflow. And so the general feel of the game is something I didn't like. I didn't like the fact that you're trying to directly hurt your opponents. I mean, I'm not that style of gamer. I don't really like or enjoy that. Um, and it just didn't work the way I would have liked it to. It just feels it can end very abruptly without any control whatsoever. So some cards you're drafting get to convert, say you're overflowing on blue cubes. You really need to get rid of them. No cards you draw are blue. You can't do anything about it. The next person passes you a bunch of blue cubes, game over. Simple as that. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't like it. It also had some I don't know why they thought it was a good mechanism, like a really tacked on mechanism of um, getting these bonuses by sliding up this track. It just didn't fit the rest of the game at all. So yeah, it just felt just very abrupt. It could just end just like that with no control whatsoever. Very subject to the cards you have in your hand, and yeah, it just felt very lackluster to me. I appreciate it was trying something a bit different, but yeah, this one won't be. Well, it's not my game; it's my brother's game. But if it was up to me, it wouldn't be staying around. So yeah, that
Sounds
is
like you
Whirling
love it,
Witchcraft.
and it sounds like it's right up your alley. So glad to hear you're enjoying Whirling Witchcraft.
Yeah, exactly. It's very very underwhelming game. That is
Sorry to hear that. It looks like such a fun theme. I really like the idea. I like the components. The art is fun. Oh, that's unfortunate.
yeah, just missed, a big miss for me. Okay, so the game I have for you. Sorry, I didn't share any pictures for that either. The game I have for you is a game. I think I've probably spoke about the same similar things for this one. Is how much of this game is gameplay mechanisms and how much of it is story. I'm just interested to see the balance between gameplay and theme in this one. This is a game called This War of Mine. So
Ah.
why is this in your collection, Mackenzie?
So this War of Mine, I think, is a really fascinating solo experience. I think that this game tells a story exceedingly well and has the mechanisms to back it up. So this War of Mine is a survival style game that is set during a civil war, but I believe it's in Poland, but it's based off of real life history, and they actually use it as a teaching tool in Polish history courses because of how direct it is and how very real the scenario and systems are. So I really love that right off the bat. The theming is amazing. It's very dark, very grim, but very realistic in the way it portrays this struggle. So right off the bat, the narrative aspect of it is wonderful, but the mechanisms are surprisingly interesting, straightforward, and challenging. So every round you're going to have survivors and you'll allocate them to different areas. They get actions based on how healthy they are. So it's important to keep your characters fed and safe and make sure they're not sick or tired. And so you'll be allocating these different characters to different rooms, performing different actions. So you resolve the actions. A lot of these things will be gathering resources, developing your settlement, or building out new constructions that are going to push you further in your engine building. After you've done this, you go to the night phase where you keep some of your survivors at base in order to protect your home, and then you'll send the others exploring. And that's my favorite mechanism in the game is the exploration. You're going to have this deck of cards that you'll be constructing, and you'll have all of these cards based on how far away you've gone to find this place. If the hospital's close, you're going to have more cards for it because it took you less time to travel there. Love that off the bat because that's going to give you more choices and incentivizes you to go to specific areas, but maybe one area has items you really need. Maybe the grocery store is really far away, but you really need some food, so you get rid of some time to make sure that you take that. Once you actually get to the exploration, you'll draw cards from this constructed deck that you'll randomize, and each of those provides you a choice. It may have noise that you might have to roll that may trigger encounters, or you may have options to get rid of some of the cards on top of that exploration deck, so lose even more time to avoid potential hazards. So there's a lot of push your luck in this system, but you're ultimately trying to find these specific items and then maybe initiate some trades and then eventually bring all your loot back to your home base. And back on the home front, you have to resolve some sort of event. There's usually going to be a combat that happens as people try to invade your base. So you're also risking how many people you're leaving behind and how many people you're sending to explore, because the more people you have back are going to help defend, but the more you send out are going to be able to actually bring back more stuff from their explorations. And then you resolve all this and hopefully just make it through another day. This is a game that is severely punishing, but extremely thematic, but it's also manageable. There are things that you can do. There are ways that you can learn. There's tips and strategies that you can employ to help you with the resolutions. But I really just love how this tells a story and how it does it well. So I really enjoy this War of Mine. And I think that if you're looking for an experience that is realistic, dark, but also extremely interesting and one that you'll be thinking about after and during that play really consistently, I think that this War of Mine is wonderful. So that's why that's in our collection. Fantastically unique, but so well done in what it's doing.
Yeah, interesting. So I mean, I'm not a theme guy, but this theme I absolutely love. I mean, I kind of a lot of my favorite books and stuff are the the micro look on something macro like a war. I love that. So a big scope. You're looking at the very intricate personal details of someone's experience.
And that's
That for
some of
me
the
sounds
best things in this. Like some of the characters are people who owned a hardware store, and now all of a sudden they're out of business and they have cobbled together the last couples of cash. Or maybe you have a person who was here on vacation or was here like working for the Peace Corps or something like that, and they're just caught up in all this, and all of a sudden their
yeah.
life is completely changed. And watching that develop and following the stories of those characters,
Yeah.
whew, this game is wonderful. It really
Okay,
is.
brilliant. Yeah, I mean, this is certainly one of those games that probably would top of the list actually. If I was to make a list of games that I would love to play but probably wouldn't be right for my collection, this would probably be right near the top of that list because it's definitely
Mm.
an experience I want to try at least once to say I've played it and see, to just to experience it. So yeah, that certainly feels like it's what I'm expecting of it, really. So, and I'm interested to see that the gameplay is equally as strong as the thematic side of it as well. So, yeah, I know that one's got a big following, and again, particularly I think it's a successful video game as well, and it's
Mhm.
good to see that it's translated well over to a board game format, which is quite impressive, really. Um, okay, yeah, good explanation. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
that
Thank
is
you.
why is this in your collection? So that is This War of Mine and sadly Berlin Witchcraft, which
No.
yeah. Okay, so moving on then, we're going to move on to A to Z. So this is a segment where we talk through a simpler game and a more involved game of a particular letter category. So this episode we are on the letter Q. And as you could probably expect and gather, Q isn't such a popular letter when it comes to board games. So we've taken a bit of a different approach this episode, and we've both picked the same games because we both enjoy these two games, and hopefully we can talk about them a bit more. So the first game we want to talk about is a game called QE. So QE is a very weird game, and probably one of the would you say it's one of the quirkiest games you have in your collection, Mackenzie? It certainly breaks a lot of boundaries of what auction games are.
For me, I would push it more to the gimmicky than I would say quirky. So yes, I do think that it is very different what it does because of what it allows you to do, and I love that about this game. I love that it presents you with the opportunity. So QE stands for quantitative easing, which is when the relative value of money is changed based on how much money is being printed. And I think that that is done exceedingly well here in this game because the tagline here is bid anything. You play as a country printing money. And what a great theme right off the bat. So, Dan, go ahead and give us a rundown. How does this actually work?
Right. So basically, each round a tile is going to come out, and they're going to be of kind of different suits really, which is represented by different like industries. And you are trying to collect these different industries to get set collection bonuses on a sliding scale. Basically, the more you get of the same type, the more points you get. However, each round there's going to be somebody who's kind of almost the auctioneer, but not really. And they are going to reveal that, and then they are going to get given bids from all the other players, which, as Mackenzie said, could be anything. So it could be as little as one, it could be as high as 25 trillion. It doesn't matter. You can write whatever you want. But then only that person who's the auctioneer for that round is going to see what all the other players' bids are. And of course, the highest bid is going to get that tile. But being careful that whoever bids the most money at the end of the game is automatically going to be disqualified from winning. So it's a real game where you have to kind of feel out the process amongst all the other players to know that how much money you have to play with in the future rounds, and for that tension of how much do I have to spend. My mate over here spent 50 grand last round. I've only spent 4 grand so far. Therefore, I at least have 50 grand to play with. So yeah, it's a weird game. It almost feels it's very similar to a game called High Society. However, this one's completely off the rails. There's no train track. There's next to no restrictions in this game. But for me, I think it really does strike a great balance between being a game but still being a bit party-ish as well. It's a very weird niche in the collection where it scales well. You can play with 5 players, and it feels gamey enough, but not too gamey, and party enough and fun, but not too light. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting design, and
The
I,
thing
I
that gets
absolutely adore it.
me the thing that gets me with QE is the turn. So the big thing in this is you don't want to spend the most money at the end of the game. But seeing as there's no real limit, at the start of the round, you're usually bidding some lower numbers, some lower values. So you might be spending $150 on these first couple of bids, but then at the end of the game, you're spending millions or billions. So the biggest part of this game is knowing when the game is going to turn from low values to high values. And so a lot of times, once that turn happens, whoever's collected the most of a specific basically who's ever collected the most points at that turn moment, usually that person ends up winning. And that's really what's kind of dinged this game for me a little bit, was that it's kind of it's weird because you can do whatever you want, but it ends up happening and resulting the exact same way, where once that turn happens, then the end of the game is kind of telegraphed. And so that is what keeps it from hitting those higher echelons of my rankings. But I do think that the system is just so intriguing itself, and I'm curious to see other takes on it. But with all the different groups that I've played with, it seemed to go kind of the same way, even though it does offer so much choice. What are your thoughts on that?
I must say I haven't really had a bad experience of this one yet.
Mhm.
I've not really found that, but maybe that's happening. I'm not realizing it because I'm just enjoying it so much. I don't know. I really do get kind of lost in this one, and yeah, I mean, I love auction games anyway, and I love the fact that this one just takes a different approach on it. It feels unique, despite me having tons of auction games. This one feels distinct from the others. But yeah, I think what I take away from it is the fact that, as I said earlier, it does merge those party and gamey things together, and because it does have a party vibe for it, I kind of give it a bit more leeway maybe with some of the issues. I don't know, but I think it's great. I think it sounds more fragile than what it is in my personal experience, but I don't know. I've maybe I've not played it enough. I've played it a few times, but not tons. And so far, it's always been a hit for me. So hey, that's QE. I really enjoy it.
Yep, really enjoy just the fun that comes when you play this game. One of my
Yeah,
favorite little parts of this is when you give that check to the other player, you write your value on it secretly and you pass it over. And a lot of times you can write like secret little messages on there, and it's just so funny. And or it just like put like a really ridiculously low value, or you do whatever you want. It's so funny. It cracks me up. I really like that secret message. It's so fun.
yeah. Or when you are the actual person who's getting the cars, you like oversell how high it is or something. You're like, oh my god, I can't believe you're bidding that, and then everybody thinks, oh god, I must have bid low. Therefore, next time I'm going to bid a ton. Yeah, it's very fun. Okay, so that's I suppose we say a lighter game, but I think the next game isn't much heavier. To be honest, it's pretty much in the same category. But you might have seen this one coming, people. This one is the Quacks of Quedlinburg. So this one is one of the monster hits probably of the last 3-4 years. I can't get out now. The 2018, so nearly 4 years ago. Yeah, this one, a really family-friendly, push your luck style game. It's a bag building game as you're adding these different tokens, these different chits into your bag, and they all have a different benefit on them. And there's supposed to be different ingredients for this. Yeah, this. Well, I don't know what it is, I suppose it's a cauldron, I suppose, isn't it? You're adding them in, and they all react differently. So some might say, if you put this one after another token, it might get a boost, or this one cancels out these negative tokens, which if you go over a certain limit, you're going to bust. And I love the variety of the different tokens of this one. Every game can kind of feel slightly different depending on what's available to you. Extremely accessible, plays in a amount of time, and I will say that this one I played way after a lot of the hype came. I was very late to the party on this one, so obviously hype train was massively high, and I still enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. In fact, that we went out and bought it straight away because it was that good. So yeah, I'm still enjoying this one. I think it's still in my collection, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Um, really enjoy it. What are your thoughts on Quacks?
I'm right with you there. Quacks is an amazing push your luck game. The fact that it's simultaneous push your luck really propels it forward. And then the customization of the different abilities is going to be keeping you coming back to it. My favorite things are actually the associated abilities with the chips. I love that. I love how they change, interact, and then the interplay between the different abilities works well. And then every expansion that's come out for this game has been great. So I love the herb witches. I love these one-time superpowers that make you feel real good when you use them. Generally, they're going to propel your engine forward. And then the newest expansion, Alchemists, offers special abilities that you get from the get-go that give you more interaction and mitigation throughout the round. One in particular that I really enjoy is this. It's this tube track where you can spend essence, which is kind of a new currency that you get with this expansion, and it allows you to return previously played colored chips back to your bag so you can reuse effects. We had this amazing game the other day where I was consistently using using one of these red chips here and just kept on pulling the same chips. I would pull one, send it back, pull one, send it back, and it was awesome. It felt so good because you're able to employ this new bit of strategy into what otherwise is a very luck heavy game. Still very much luck heavy, but you're having more choices and mitigation and options to increase your odds at powerful plays. Whoa, I love this game. Quacks is wonderful.
It is. What's your favorite chip of all of them?
Whew, the best color chip is actually probably the newest chip, Loco Weed. First off, the name hilarious. The abilities and how it intertwines with the different effects in general are also really fun. And I love how it varies in cost. And it's just one big chip, and it feels real good when you pull it because the effects are so funky. The new Alchemist expansion came with like 5 new boards for the Loco Weed chip, so now it actually has variable effects, and I love how it ties into that expansion too. So I think it's really done really well, and it just feels real good when you pull one. You're like, yes, this does something funky and fresh. I love it.
Yeah, some of
Yourself?
them are really fun. I like the one. I don't know what they're called, but I like the one where is it where the pumpkins and mushrooms work off each other, so they push them
Oh
along further.
yeah.
I really like that
Oh
one.
my
I don't know why.
gosh. I
I like
love
that
the
one.
ones that interact with the pumpkins, especially when you get them all in the same game and you just have this ridiculous
Yeah,
race to see who can get the most pumpkins. So much fun.
yeah, it is really good fun. I mean, that's what this game is all about. I find it really hard, or I struggle to understand why people can leave a game of Quacks without enjoying it. It's one of those games that I struggle to find. How can someone not enjoy this? It's such good fun. As you said, especially because it all plays simultaneously as well. Just a really good design, and again, all those ingredients, no pun intended, to make that's just a hit that's going to stand the test of time. A real family, family friendly, but just enough luck for a push, obviously push luck game, but just a perfect balance of everything, in my opinion. But yeah, wonderful game. Okay, just to go into some few comments before we wrap up here. Then, Enrique has said that this War of Mine, a really interesting game, and Nemesis destroys that originality, and it's a terrible game. I can't comment on that. I've never played Nemesis. Is that true, Mackenzie? Have you played Nemesis?
I really like Nemesis. I think that the theme is very approachable, and I really enjoy the gameplay of Nemesis as well, and the trader mechanism. So I don't really agree with you here, Enrique, but I do think that this War of Mine is a very interesting game, and it's an amazing experience as well.
Okay, cool. K Hewitt, I don't know what he means here, but ever flicked a Rupop. Do you know what that means? I don't know what that
I do
means.
not know.
No, okay, moving on then. Which game is better, Lagrania or My Farm Shop? They seem similar. I've not played Lagrania. My Farm Shop I really enjoy, but I thought they were very different types of games. That one was quite heavy Euro, one's very family friendly little Machikoro style game. So I don't know if it's right to compare them. David Kiss has said, I know it might sound like blasphemy, but he likes Cubitos more than Quacks. Cubitos was a big miss for me. I didn't like that one at all, to be honest. And that was one game on paper that I thought, God, this sounds great. This is like Quacks but with dice. Didn't land at all. But hey, I think maybe Cubitos is more popular than you might be giving it credit. I think it's quite well done, or quite well. Have you played Cubitos,
I
Mackenzie?
haven't. I have not. I've wanted to give it a try before I purchase because I do notice the comparisons between Quacks, but I've seen in many of the reviews that there is the runaway leader problem in that doesn't have as much of a catch-up mechanism that appears in Quacks with the rat tails, so it's not as satisfying, and that the abilities are a bit clunky with how they interact with each other, as opposed to the smoothness that's shown in Quacks. And that's kind of been my apprehension to actually going forward and actually getting it ourselves, because we do have Quacks already, which fits that space perfectly for this bag building style. So that's kind of been my approach to it. So I have not tried it yet, but I am actively looking to give it a try.
Okay, I would say that your hunch is 100% correct.
Ooh.
For me, all the dice in it, just like I don't really care about this one. It's not that interesting. This one isn't interesting either. I'll just take what I can get. Whereas in Quacks, I'm like, oh, I really want this one. I really want this one. It's for me, it just doesn't even compare. But
Okay.
but to be fair, David said he enjoys them both, but he has a soft spot for dice. So yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, Hewitt said, chip protectors for Quacks. I'm pretty sure they're just normal coin protectors that you can get mass market. So yeah, they're not particular ones. You can get them for really cheap, from what I understand. I don't
Yep.
have them
If you
myself.
look at Amazon, you can find them pretty cheaply. There are lots of sizes. If you just go to the BGG page for Quacks, people will list these or ask for these, so you can really find them easily there. So that'd be my recommendation if you want the chips. But if you really are looking to upgrade your Quacks experience, I do recommend the BGG bits. I just think that that elevates that tactile experience tremendously. So that'd be my recommendation. They just came back in stock, so that might be something you go check out.
Yeah. Jacob Long, he said, "Oh, have I, or I'm familiar with the Sebastral? So that must be the multiplayer version of Stella." So I was saying earlier that I think
Ah,
Stella could easily scale well. So obviously they've already thought that themselves. So no, I've not played Sebastral, only played Stella. But yeah, I could see how that would work without any issues. Okay, Hewitt said, "Have we seen the new board game for Toe Jam and Earl?" No, I didn't realize there was a board game for Jam and Earl coming out. No, nothing about that one. Any knowledge?
I don't even know what this is, so I'm looking it up
Uh,
right now. Looks like it's a video game series
yeah,
from
it's a
the Sega
cartoon
Genesis.
video game series. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of this.
No, I didn't know there was a board game coming out. I didn't think anybody knew about Toe Jam and Earl anymore nowadays.
Well,
Um,
it could be like Blacklist Games. I know they're doing that Mega Man game. They just finished the Contra game, so yeah, I could see that being something very easily
yeah,
approachable. Depends on the type of
yeah,
game. If it's like a platformer or something.
yeah, yeah. Would Lagranja or My Farm Shop make our beloved Viticulture redundant? I don't know. I've not played Viticulture. Hopefully playing it soon, actually. Okay, I think that pretty much wraps up everything. Mackenzie, anything you're in or particularly looking forward to playing in
So
the
I
near
just
future?
received a shipping update from Three Sisters. So that's the new roll and write from the team that brought us Fleet the Dice game. So very excited to play that. Also received shipping notification for It's a Wonderful Kingdom. So that will be here as well. And then we just received a bunch of pre-order games, including the expansion to Lost Ruins of Arnak. So I'm excited to try that one out with the expedition leaders. Sounds like a blast. And then I'm excited to play more Mind MGMT, honestly. So I think Mind Management is just a really solid system, and I hope I get some more games in it in for it today. So I just want to play more of that game.
Yeah, brilliant. Myself, I think I'm trying to. I've played quite a lot of new games this month, so I'm hoping. Well, I'm trying to sit back for the rest of the month and play some older favorites. But next new games to me, I'm going to try and learn Boon Lake because I finally got a copy of Boon Lake. I got a copy of Bora Bora as well, so hopefully going to get that
Ooh.
one played. So been after that one for a long, long time. So hopefully can get that one to the front of the queue as well. And still haven't learned Hadrian's Wall, so I need to learn to play that one. And I think we
Oh
talked
my
about it
gosh.
briefly. Yeah, so got a lot of work to do in terms of learning, but still some really exciting titles, and always moving on to the next thing. So that concludes the episode, people. So thank you so much for joining us as always. Feel free to leave comments below. We'll be sure to get back to you in slow time. I understand it's very early in the States for you guys, so yeah, appreciate if
It's
you joined
seven
us this
o'clock
early.
now. It's fine. It's
Yeah,
fine. In peeps in Florida, it's 9 o'clock. It's fine. It's
yeah,
fine.
that's not too bad. That's not too bad. All right, okay, that's it then, people. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Corporate Cardboard. Bye now.